Ambassador Elena Vasquez stood in the Grand Hall of Harmony Nexus, watching the alien delegates argue among themselves. The space station floated in neutral territory, a massive ring of metal and glass where the Galactic Council made its decisions. Through the transparent ceiling, she could see dozens of alien ships docked at various ports. Some looked like giant squids, others resembled crystals or organic plants. Compared to them, Earth's small diplomatic shuttle looked like a toy. Elena had been Earth's ambassador for 18 months now. 18 months since humanity had been invited to join the Galactic Council. The other species had debated for years before allowing humans in. They thought Earth was primitive. Interesting, maybe even promising, but definitely primitive. The human ships were slow. Human weapons were basic. Human technology was centuries behind everyone else, or so they thought. High Arbiter. Thelxian clicked his mandibles together, a sign of frustration. He looked like a mantis the size of a bear, with green chitin armor and 4 arms. His voice came through the translation device as a pleasant tenor. The situation is dire. The Mirren colony is under attack. The Kresh Dominion has sent a full invasion fleet. Worried sounds filled the chamber. The Mirrans were a peaceful species, small and furry like otters. They had no military to speak of. The Kresh Dominion, on the other hand, was aggressive and territorial. They had been testing council boundaries for months. Commander Vokhtar, a reptilian warrior from the Saurian Empire, slammed his clawed hand on the table. My fleet can reach Mirren space in 6 days. We will drive the Kresh back. 6 days is too long, said a delegate from the Crystalline Collective. Her body chimed like bells when she moved. The Mirrans will be dead by then. Their distress signal said they have perhaps 48 hours before their shields fail. The council members looked at each other. No one had a fleet close enough to help in time. The Kresh had chosen their target well. Elena stood up. All eyes turned to her. She was tall for a human woman, with dark hair tied back and sharp brown eyes that missed nothing. Earth can help. Thelxian's mandibles twitched in what might have been amusement. Ambassador Vasquez, I appreciate the offer. But your nearest ship is your shuttle in the dock. The Kresh have 47 warships attacking Mirren. I mean no offense, but we have something closer, Elena said calmly. The chamber went quiet. Commander Vokhtar leaned forward. What do you mean? Our sensors show no human vessels within 3 light-years of the Mirren system. Elena smiled slightly. It was not a warm smile. Your sensors show what we want them to show. She pulled out a small communication device from her jacket. The other delegates watched as she pressed her thumb against it for identification. Then she spoke clearly. This is Ambassador Elena Vasquez. Authorization code Vasquez Alpha 7. Execute Protocol Leviathan. Target Mirren system. Rules of engagement. Defensive protection, minimal force, 0 collateral damage. A voice responded immediately, cold and professional. Protocol Leviathan confirmed. Buenos Erebus responding. Had it to Mirren system, 42 minutes. Captain Kane sends his regards, Ambassador. Elena closed the device and looked up at the shocked faces around her. Thelxian's mandibles hung open. Commander Vokhtar had gone very still, the way predators do when they sense danger. What? Thelxian said slowly. Is Protocol Leviathan? Help, Elena said simply. 42 minutes? The crystalline delegate's voice rose in pitch. That's impossible. Nothing can travel that fast across that distance. Nothing that could fight 47 warships anyway. Dr. Sarah Chen, the human xenobiologist who accompanied Elena, spoke up from her seat. She was younger, with glasses perched on her nose and an expression of perpetual curiosity. The Erebus was already in the area. Routine patrol. Routine patrol of what? Vokhtar demanded. That region is empty space. There's nothing there. Exactly, Sarah said cheerfully. Perfect place for a patrol. The council chamber erupted in confused chatter. Several delegates demanded explanations. Others accused humanity of treaty violations. A few looked genuinely frightened. Elena remained standing, calm and composed, while the storm raged around her. Thelxian raised all 4 arms, calling for silence. When the chamber quieted, he focused his compound eyes on Elena. Ambassador, I think you need to explain exactly what is happening. What is the Erebus? Why do we have no record of the ship? Elena took a breath. When humanity developed faster than light travel, we knew we might encounter other species. We didn't know if you would be friendly. Our history is full of wars, High Arbiter. Full of moments when showing weakness invited attack. So we built defenses. Strong defenses. Then we kept them quiet. You lied to us, someone accused. We told you nothing false, Elena corrected. We showed you our diplomatic vessels, our trade ships, our science craft. You assumed those represented the full extent of human space capability. We never confirmed or denied that assumption. We simply let you believe what you wanted to believe. Vokhtar's eyes narrowed. This Erebus. What class of ship is it? Dreadnought class, Elena said. 8 kilometers long. Full combat configuration. The chamber went dead silent. 8 kilometers. Most Council warships were 1 kilometer at most. The largest known vessel in Council space was a Saurian carrier at 3 kilometers. That's, Thelxian started, then stopped. That's a planet killer. Yes, Elena agreed. It is. And in 42 minutes it's going to save the Mirren colony. She sat down and folded her hands in her lap, waiting. Around her, the Galactic Council realized that they had fundamentally misunderstood humanity. The primitive newcomers weren't primitive at all. They had simply been hiding their teeth. Far away in the darkness between stars, something massive was moving. Something that had been waiting silently for this exact moment. Captain Marcus Kane stood on the bridge of the Erebus and smiled. The monsters were coming to help. Captain Marcus Kane had been sitting in darkness for 3 months. Not the darkness of sleep, but the darkness of deep space far from any star or planet. The UNSC Erebus hung silent in the void. All non-essential systems powered down, wrapped in a cloak of stealth technology that bent light and sensor waves around its massive hull. Kane was a tall man, with gray at his temples and scars on his hands from the old wars. Wars that happened before humanity met the Galactic Council. Wars that had taught humanity terrible lessons about the cost of being unprepared. Captain, his tactical officer called out. Lieutenant Yuki Tanaka was young but sharp. She had been monitoring the encrypted channels constantly. We have activation codes. Protocol Leviathan. Kane sat up straighter in his command chair. Confirmed, sir. Ambassador Vasquez. Authorization verified. Target is Mirren system. Kresh Dominion attack in progress. How long until the Moran's shields fail? Approximately 41 hours, sir. Kane nodded. Sound general quarters. Bring all systems online. Set course for Mirren system, maximum combat speed. Weapons free but hold fire until my command. The bridge came alive. The Erebus woke up like a sleeping dragon opening its eyes. Lights flickered on across 8 kilometers of warship. Fusion reactors that had been running at minimal power surged to full output. Weapon systems initialized. The crew of 4,000 humans moved to their stations with practiced efficiency. Captain, said Commander James Rodriguez from the engineering station. All systems green. We are ready. Take us in. The Erebus turned in space. Its main engines fired, pushing the massive ship forward. Faster, faster. The acceleration would have crushed an unprotected human, but inertial dampeners kept the crew safe. Within minutes, the dreadnought was moving at speeds that would terrify the Galactic Council. Kane stared at the main view screen, where computer projections showed the Mirren system ahead. He thought about the past, about Earth's history. Humans had always been good at war. Too good. In the 21st century, they had nearly destroyed themselves with nuclear weapons. In the 22nd century, they had fought over colonies in the solar system. Millions had died in the Jupiter Wars. Billions more in the Great Collapse when Earth's climate nearly failed. Then they had developed faster-than-light travel. And humanity had looked at the stars and asked a terrible question. What if we're not alone? What if what we find out there is hostile? So they had built ships. Big ships. Ships designed for the worst possible scenario. Dreadnoughts that could crack planets. Cruisers that could vaporize fleets. Weapons platforms that could sterilize entire star systems. Then they had found the Galactic Council. And the Council had been peaceful. Welcoming even. Curious about the strange bipeds from Earth. Humanity had breathed a sigh of relief. They had hidden their warships in dark space, far from trade routes and populated systems. They had sent out small, harmless-looking vessels for diplomacy and trade. They had smiled and acted grateful to be included, but they had never stopped watching. Never stopped preparing. Never fully trusted that the galaxy was as peaceful as it seemed. 15 minutes to Moran system, Tanaka reported. Tactical overview, Kane ordered. The view screen changed to show the Moran system. The colony was on the 3rd planet, a beautiful world of blue oceans and green continents. Surrounding it were 47 Kresh warships. They looked like black daggers, each one bristling with weapons. They were hammering the Moran planetary shields with particle beams and missiles. Kresh ships are standard cruiser class, Tanaka said, each approximately 800 meters. Combined firepower sufficient to crack the planetary shield in approximately 40 hours. Any civilian evacuation? Negative, sir. The Morans have no military ships. Their evacuation transports would be easy targets. Kane clenched his jaw. The Mirans were pacifists. They made art and music. They had joined the council because they believed in cooperation and peace. And now they were about to die because the Kresh Dominion wanted their planet for a military base. 5 minutes, Tanaka said. The Kresh have not detected us yet. Maintain stealth until we're in position. Then drop the cloak. I want them to see us, sir. I want them to see what's coming. Maybe they'll be smart and run. The Erebus slid into the Miran system like a shark entering a pool. The Kresh fleet was so focused on bombarding the planet that they didn't notice the massive predator behind them. Position optimal, Captain. Drop stealth. All frequencies broadcast this. Kresh fleet, you are ordered to withdraw immediately. This is your only warning. The cloaking field collapsed. Suddenly the Erebus was visible. 8 kilometers of midnight black hull covered in angular armor plates. Weapon arrays that looked like cities of gun emplacements running along its flanks. Massive engine ports glowing with blue fire. In the Kresh flagship, Warlord Zathrok saw the sensor readout and laughed. A single human ship? The humans were supposed to be weak, primitive. Their ships were small cargo vessels and scouts. Unknown vessel, Zathrok broadcast back. You are outgunned 47-1. Turn back or be destroyed, Kane sighed. He had hoped they would run. Captain, Rodriguez said quietly, the Kresh are arming all weapons. They're targeting us. Kane watched the tactical display. The Kresh ships were turning, bringing their weapons to bear. In moments they would fire everything they had at the Erebus. Weapons free, Kane said calmly. Fire! What happened next lasted 34 seconds. The Erebus unleashed its arsenal. Railgun batteries along its spine fired tungsten slugs accelerated to 15% of light speed. Each slug hit with the force of a nuclear bomb. Kresh ships exploded into clouds of metal and fire. Missile pods opened along the Erebus's flanks, launching hundreds of kinetic kill vehicles. They streaked across space, each one finding a target. More explosions bloomed like deadly flowers. Plasma lances, each powered by a dedicated fusion reactor, swept across the Kresh formation. The beams cut through shields and armor like paper. Ships split in half, spilling atmosphere and bodies into the void. And then the Erebus fired its secret weapon, graviton pulse cannons. They created localized gravity wells, crushing ships like tin cans under invisible fists. Warlord Zathrok had time for one final thought. What have we done? Then his ship compressed into a sphere of crushed metal 3 meters across. In 34 seconds, 47 Kresh warships became debris. The space around Moran filled with wreckage and frozen bodies. Kane stared at the destruction with tired eyes. Damage report. 0 damage, sir. The Kresh weapons didn't even reach us. Casualties. None, sir. Planetary status? Miran colony is intact. No civilian casualties. They're hailing us. They want to thank us. Kane nodded slowly. Tell them they're safe. And someone patch me through to Ambassador Vasquez. Elena's face appeared on a screen. Behind her, Kane could see shocked alien faces. The Mirans are safe, Ambassador, Kane reported. Thank you, Captain. Stand by there. I think we're going to need you visible for a while. Kane understood. The galaxy needed to see what humanity had been hiding. Needed to see the monster that had been sleeping in the dark. Understood. Erebus will maintain position. The communication ended. Kane looked at his crew. They looked back at him, waiting. Good work, people, he said quietly. Let's hope we never have to do that again. But he knew they would. Because now the galaxy knew humanity's secret, and everything was about to change. The Galactic Council chamber had gone completely silent. Every delegate stared at the holographic display floating above the center table. It showed the Miran system in real time, transmitted by Council monitoring satellites. Where 47 Kresh warships had been, there was now only debris. Floating chunks of metal, frozen bodies, the wreckage of an entire invasion fleet. And in the middle of it all, untouched and undamaged, sat the Erebus. Ambassador Elena Vasquez watched the reactions carefully. High Arbiter. Thelxian's mandibles trembled. Commander Vokhtar had gone pale under his scales. The crystalline delegate was making a sound like wind chimes in a storm. 34 seconds, someone whispered. They destroyed 47 ships in 34 seconds. Dr. Sarah Chen pulled up another display, showing the tactical analysis. The Erebus took 0 damage. The Kresh weapons never even reached it. Human point defense systems eliminated every missile and beam before impact. That's impossible, said a delegate from the Aquarian Collective. His translator made his gurgling voice sound thin and afraid. No single ship can have that much firepower. Elena stood up. She had been waiting for this moment. Time to tell the truth, or at least part of it. Members of the Council, she began. I understand your shock. Let me explain. When humanity developed faster than light travel 70 years ago, we were afraid. Our history is full of examples of what happens when a technologically superior force meets an inferior one. Usually the inferior one dies. She paused, letting that sink in. So we prepared for the worst. We built ships like the Erebus. We developed weapons that could protect us from any threat. We created defense systems around our homeworld and colonies. And then, when we met you and found peace, we chose to hide those capabilities. Delexian found his voice. Why deceive us? We didn't deceive you, Elena said firmly. We showed you our diplomatic vessels, our trade ships, our science craft. We never lied about our capabilities. We simply didn't volunteer information about our military strength. In our experience, when others know how strong you are, they want to test that strength. We wanted peace, not conflict. So we appeared weak. You made fools of us, growled Vokhtar. My intelligence services told me humanity was no threat, that your technology was primitive. Your intelligence services saw what we wanted them to see, Sarah said apologetically. Our stealth technology is very good. The Erebus was 0.3 light-years from this station for the past 3 months. Your sensors never detected it. The chamber erupted. Delegates shouted over each other. Some were angry. Some were scared. A few looked calculating, already wondering how to use this information. Elena raised her voice. I understand your concerns, but consider what just happened. The Mirans were dying. Your fleets couldn't reach them in time. We saved them. 0 Miran casualties, 0 collateral damage. The Erebus neutralized a military threat with precision and restraint. Restraint? A delegate from the Avian Concordat ruffled his feathers angrily. You annihilated an entire fleet. A fleet that was committing genocide, Elena shot back. The Kresh ignored warnings. They fired on the Erebus. Captain Kane had every right to defend his ship and protect Miran civilians. He used exactly the force necessary, no more, no less. On the holographic display, the Erebus began moving. It positioned itself in orbit around the Miran planet, a silent guardian. Miran ships, small and fragile-looking, approached it carefully. They were broadcasting thanks on every channel. Delexian watched this for a long moment. Then he looked at Elena. How many ships like the Erebus does humanity have? Elena met his eyes. 12 dreadnoughts, approximately 200 heavy cruisers, several thousand smaller combat vessels, plus defensive platforms around our colonies in the Sol system. The chamber went silent again. The numbers were staggering. Humanity had the largest military fleet in Council space, and no one had known. Where are these ships? Demanded Vokhtar. In dark space, in places your sensors don't look, waiting. Waiting for what? For moments like this, when they're needed. A new voice spoke up. It was Ambassador Krell from the Peaceful Trading Cooperative, a species that looked like walking flowers. I have a question, Ambassador Vasquez. If you have all this power, why hide it? Why not use it to dominate? To conquer? Elena smiled sadly. Because we learned that lesson already, Ambassador. On Earth, we nearly destroyed ourselves with weapons of mass destruction. We fought wars that killed billions. We almost made our homeworld uninhabitable. We learned that having power and using power are very different things. She walked to the window and looked out at the stars. We don't want to conquer anyone. We don't want to dominate the Council. We just want to protect our people and live in peace. But we also learned that peace requires strength, that predators respect fangs, not good intentions. Dr. Chen added, the Kresh attacked the Mirans because the Mirans are pacifists with no defenses. They thought there would be no consequences. Now they know differently. And what about us? Delexian asked quietly. What if the Council decides we can't trust humanity? What if we vote to expel you? Or worse? Elena turned back to face him. Her expression was calm but serious. then we would be disappointed. We would miss the opportunity to be part of this wonderful community. But High Arbiter, please understand, we are not asking for permission to exist. We are not asking for permission to defend ourselves. We're informing you of facts you should have discovered during your initial contact assessment. Are you threatening us? Someone asked. No, Elena said firmly. We're being honest with you. For the first time, completely honest. Humanity has teeth, sharp ones. We prefer not to show them. But when innocent people are dying and we can help, we will. That's not a threat. That's a promise. Commander Vokhtar stood up. He was a warrior, trained to assess threats. He looked at the display showing the Erebus, then at Elena. I have fought in many battles. I have seen powerful weapons. But I have never seen anything like what the Erebus just did. He paused, then continued. I also noticed that the Erebus could have destroyed every Kresh ship with its first volley. But it didn't. It gave them a warning. It gave them a chance to withdraw. Only when they chose to fight did it destroy them. And even then, it targeted only military vessels. No civilian ships. No unnecessary destruction. Vokhtar looked around the chamber. That is not the behavior of a species that wants conquest. That is discipline, restraint. These humans have weapons that could crack worlds, but they use them only to protect. I say we should be grateful they are on our side. Elena felt something loosen in her chest. She hadn't been sure how this would go. Having Vokhtar, a respected military commander, speak in humanity's favor could change everything. Thelxian clicked his mandibles together, thinking. Finally, he spoke. This council must vote on how to proceed. But that vote will take time. In the meantime, I have a question for you, Ambassador. If another threat appears, would humanity respond again? If innocent lives are in danger and we can help, yes. Even though it reveals your capabilities? Even though it might make you enemies. Elena thought about the Mirren families safe on their planet. About the children who would grow up because the Erebus had been there. Yes, she said. Every time. Thelxian nodded slowly. Then perhaps we have been lucky, members of the Council. Lucky that humanity values life. Lucky that they choose peace. And lucky that when war comes, they are willing to fight for those who cannot fight for themselves. He looked at Elena. We will reconvene in 72 hours to vote on humanity's status in the Council. Until then, Ambassador, I suggest you prepare your arguments. Elena bowed slightly. Thank you, High Arbiter. As the Council session ended and delegates filed out, Sarah came to stand beside Elena. That went better than expected. Maybe, Elena said. Or maybe we just showed the galaxy that there's a monster in the dark. And now they have to decide if we're their monster or everyone's monster. Which are we? Sarah asked. Elena watched the Erebus on the display, standing guard over Mirren. We're whatever we need to be. Let's just hope we're always on the right side. The next 72 hours were the longest of Elena Vasquez's life. She spent most of it in meetings, answering the same questions over and over. How long had humanity been hiding its fleet? Where exactly were the ships located? What other secrets was Earth keeping? She answered honestly. Mostly. There were some things the Council didn't need to know yet. In her private quarters on Harmony Nexus, Elena met with General Yuri Volkov. He had arrived on a human stealth ship that the Council's sensors still couldn't detect. The old soldier looked tired. He had been managing humanity's hidden fleet for 30 years. How bad is it? He asked, pouring himself coffee from Elena's personal supply. Could be worse, Elena said. Vokhtar is on our side. Some of the peaceful species are grateful, but the Aquarian collective is scared, and the Avian Concordat thinks we're planning to conquer everyone. Are we? Yuri asked with a slight smile. You know we're not. I do, but they don't know us like we know us. Yuri sat down heavily. I've been watching the intelligence reports. Half the Council species are trying to figure out how to build weapons like ours. The other half are trying to figure out how to destroy us before we destroy them. Elena rubbed her temples. She could feel a headache coming. We saved the Mirrens. Why can't they see that we're not the enemy? Because we scared them, Yuri said simply. Fear makes people stupid, and we gave them a lot to be afraid of. There was a knock on the door. Dr. Sarah Chen entered, carrying her tablet. She looked excited, which was unusual given the circumstances. You need to see this, Sarah said, pulling up a file. I've been analyzing communications from across Council space. Guess what the most common topic is? How scary humanity is. Elena guessed. Actually, no. It's gratitude. The Mirrens have been broadcasting their thanks on every channel. Other peaceful species are saying they feel safer now. There's a petition with 17 billion signatures asking the Council to keep humanity as members. Elena blinked. 17 billion? Mostly from species without strong militaries. They see humanity as protectors, as the strong friend who stands up to bullies. Yuri grunted. The enemy of my enemy is my friend. Classic. Before anyone could respond, Elena's communication device buzzed. It was an urgent message from High Arbiter Thelxian, marked Priority 1. Emergency Council Session, Elena read. Immediately. Something's happened. They rushed to the council chamber. When Elena entered, she found chaos. Delegates were shouting. Displays showed star charts and sensor data. In the center of it all, Thelxian stood with his mandibles clicking rapidly, a sign of extreme stress. Ambassador Vasquez, he called out when he saw her. Thank you for coming quickly. We have a situation. He gestured to the main display. It showed the outer edge of council space, far from any inhabited systems. And approaching from beyond that edge were thousands of ships. What am I looking at? Helena asked, though a cold feeling was growing in her stomach. First contact, said Commander Vokhtar grimly. The wrong kind. These ships appeared on our long-range sensors 30 minutes ago. They're heading directly into council space. Estimated fleet size 10,000 vessels. Estimated arrival at the nearest inhabited system, 6 months. Who are they? We don't know. They're not responding to any hails, but our analysis of their trajectory and formation suggests hostile intent. Thelxian's voice was steady, but Elena could hear the fear underneath. We're calling them the Zarath Swarm. Elena studied the display. The ships moved in perfect coordination like a school of fish or a flock of birds. There were so many of them. What are Council military capabilities? She asked. Vokhtar brought up another display showing Council fleet positions. Combined, we can field approximately 3,000 warships, but they're spread across dozens of systems. It would take weeks to gather them all in one place, and even then, he didn't need to finish. 3,000 ships against 10,000. The math was brutal. Our war simulations are not encouraging, said the Aquarian delegate quietly. Best case scenario, we lose 60% of our fleet. Worst case, total defeat. Either way, billions of civilian casualties. The chamber was silent except for the hum of the displays. Elena looked around at the alien faces. Just days ago, some of these people had been calling for humanity's expulsion. Now they looked at her with something between hope and desperation. You want to know if humanity will fight, she said. It wasn't a question. Thelxian nodded. Yes, I know we have no right to ask. We have treated you with suspicion, called you deceivers. But yes, Elena interrupted. Humanity will fight. Just like that? Asked the avian delegate suspiciously. No demands? No conditions? Elena met his eyes. Would you prefer I let you finish your question? Fine, yes, we'll fight. But we have conditions. The chamber tensed. Here it comes, their faces said. The humans are going to demand control. Demand tribute. Demand submission. Full military autonomy, Elena said. Human forces operate under human command. We coordinate with council forces, but we're not subordinate to them. Reasonable, Thelxian said. Technology sharing. We'll provide our sensor data and tactical analysis. In return, we want access to council biological databases and medical technology. Our doctors could use some of your medical advances. Also reasonable. And seats on the security command. If humanity is going to protect council space, we need a say in security decisions. Vokhtar actually smiled. I would have demanded more. These terms are acceptable. Elena looked around the chamber. Any objections? The suspicious looks had changed to something else. Relief, maybe, or respect. I have one question, said Ambassador Krell from the Peaceful Trading Cooperative. Why? Why would humanity risk its ships and crews for species that have questioned your motives? Elena thought about how to answer. She could talk about strategy, about how a stable council benefited Earth. She could mention trade agreements and diplomatic relationships. All of that was true, but it wasn't the real reason. Because it's the right thing to do, she said simply. Because there are billions of innocent people in council space who would die if we do nothing. Because we have the power to help, which means we have the responsibility to help. Humanity learned that lesson the hard way. We won't forget it. The chamber was quiet for a moment. Then Thelxian spoke. Then let us vote. All those in favor of accepting humanity's terms and appointing human forces as council defenders against the Zarath threat. Every hand, claw, tentacle, and appendage rose. The vote was unanimous. Ambassador Vasquez, Thelixian said formally, on behalf of the Galactic Council, we accept your terms. Humanity is hereby granted full military autonomy and seats on the Security Command. We place our trust in you. Elena bowed slightly. We won't let you down. One more thing, she added. I need to bring in our military command. General Volkov is already on the station, and we should contact Captain Kane. He'll coordinate the defense. The Erebus is still at Mirren, Vokhtar noted. Elena smiled slightly. Not just the Erebus anymore. General? Yuri Volkov stepped forward. He had been waiting outside the chamber. He pulled up a new display that showed various points in space around Council territory. These are the positions of our 12 dreadnoughts, he said. We're bringing them all online, along with our heavy cruiser groups and support vessels. The display lit up with hundreds of markers, ships that had been hiding in dark space waiting. All of them began moving, converging on strategic positions. How long to full deployment? Thelixian asked. 48 hours, Yuri said. All ships will be in position and ready for combat operations. Commander Vokhtar stared at the display with the expression of someone watching their entire understanding of military strategy being rewritten. This changes everything. Yes, Elena agreed. It does. The Zarath swarm is coming. They think they're invading Council space. They think they'll find easy prey. She looked at the gathered delegates at the hope and fear and determination on their alien faces. They're wrong. They're not invading. They're walking into a trap. And humanity brought the teeth. The council session ended with new purpose. Plans were made. Resources allocated. Messages sent to every corner of council space. Help is coming. Hold on. As Elena walked back to her quarters, Sarah fell into step beside her. Do you think we can win? Elena thought about the Erebus and its 11 sister ships. About the thousands of human sailors and soldiers preparing for battle. About the terrible weapons humanity had built in fear and would now use in defense. Yes, she said, we can win. The question is how many people will lose along the way. And after we save the council? What happens to humanity then? Elena smiled tiredly. Then they'll really know what we are, and we'll find out if peace was ever really possible. They walked on through the station corridors while humanity's hidden fleet emerged from the shadows, ready for war. Captain Marcus Kane stood on the bridge of the Erebus and watched 11 other dreadnoughts decloak around his position. Each one was 8 kilometers of pure military power. Together they formed the largest concentrated fleet in known space. Fleet assembly complete, Lieutenant Tanaka reported. All dreadnoughts report ready status. Heavy cruiser groups are moving into supporting positions. Kane studied the tactical display. The Zarath swarm was still 6 months away, but their trajectory was clear. They were heading straight for council space, and they weren't slowing down or responding to any communication attempts. What do we know about them? Kane asked. Commander Rodriguez pulled up what little intelligence they had gathered. Not much, sir. Long-range scans show organic-looking ships, possibly biomechanical. They move in perfect coordination, suggesting either a hive mind or very sophisticated command and control. No response to any hails in any language. And their weapons? Unknown. They haven't engaged anyone yet. But ships that size traveling in those numbers? They're not a trade convoy. Kane nodded grimly. He had seen this before in humanity's old wars. Sometimes you met an enemy that didn't want to talk, didn't want to negotiate, just wanted to destroy. The Zarath swarm had all the signs. His communication console chimed. A priority channel from Harmony Nexus. High Arbiter Thelixian's face appeared on screen. Captain Kane, the Council has voted. You are hereby appointed Supreme Commander of Joint Defense Forces. All Council military assets will coordinate with human command for the duration of this crisis. Kane felt the weight of that responsibility settle on his shoulders. Understood, High Arbiter. I'll do my best to minimize casualties. That's why we chose you, Thelixian said. You saved the Mirrens without losing a single civilian. We trust you to do the same for all of us. The connection ended. Kane looked at his crew. They looked back at him with steady eyes. They were ready. Over the next weeks, Kane worked with Council military commanders to develop a strategy. Commander Vokhtar proved invaluable, his knowledge of Council fleet capabilities helping Kane position forces effectively. The key is the choke points, Kane explained during a strategy session. The Zarath will enter Council space through one of 3 systems. We fortify those positions with combined forces. Council ships provide support and rescue operations. Human dreadnoughts provide the heavy firepower. What if they split their fleet? Asked an Aquarian admiral. Then we concentrate on the largest group first and deal with the others sequentially. Our dreadnoughts can redeploy faster than anything the Zarath have shown. The plan was solid. But Kane knew plans rarely survived first contact with the enemy. 3 months later, the Zarath swarm crossed into Council space. They came through the frontier gate system, exactly as Kane had predicted. 10,000 ships all moving as one. Kane watched from the Erebus's bridge as they approached. The Council forces were in position. 4,000 ships, the largest fleet the Council had ever assembled. It still looked small compared to the Zarath. Open a channel, Kane ordered. All frequencies. He took a breath and broadcast to the approaching swarm. Zarath vessels, this is Captain Marcus Kane of the United Nations Space Command. You are entering Galactic Council space. Turn back now. This is your only warning, no response. The swarm continued forward, spreading into a massive formation that would engulf the defensive line. They're not stopping, Tanaka said. No, Kane agreed. They're not. He looked at the tactical display one more time. Calculated the odds. Made his decision, all ships weapons free. Execute defensive pattern Omega. The battle began. The Zarath ships fired first, launching streams of bioplasma that looked like living fire. The Council shields held, but barely. Then the Council returned fire, particle beams and missiles lighting up the darkness. The Zarath numbers were overwhelming. For every ship destroyed, 3 more took its place. The Council fleet began taking casualties. A Saurian cruiser exploded. An Aquarian carrier lost atmosphere. Dreadnought group advance, Kane ordered. Show them what we brought. The 12 human dreadnoughts moved forward. They didn't look graceful like Council ships. They looked brutal, predatory, built for one purpose. The Erebus fired first. Railguns sent tungsten slugs into the Zarath formation at relativistic speeds. Each impact destroyed multiple ships. The biomechanical vessels simply exploded, unable to withstand the kinetic force. The other dreadnoughts joined in. Plasma lances carved burning paths through the swarm. Graviton pulse weapons created crushing gravity wells that compacted dozens of ships into debris. Missile volleys saturated entire sections of the Zarath formation. But the swarm kept coming. They were learning, adapting. Their ships began spreading out, making themselves harder targets. They focused fire on individual dreadnoughts, trying to overwhelm point defenses. Multiple impacts on forward shields, Rodriguez reported. Holding at 70%. Concentrate fire on their command ships, Kane ordered. If they're coordinated, something must be coordinating them. Tanaka identified the larger vessels at the center of the swarm. The Erebus turned its full arsenal on them. 20-kilometer plasma beams lanced out. Graviton cannons crushed the massive bioships, and something changed. As the command vessels died, the swarm's coordination faltered. Ships began moving erratically. The perfect formation broke apart, that's it, Kane shouted. All forces target the large vessels. Take out their command structure. The battle turned. With the Council forces working together and human dreadnoughts providing devastating firepower, they began pushing the Zarath back. The swarm that had seemed unstoppable was breaking apart. Hours passed. The space around Frontier Gate became a graveyard of broken ships. Human, Council, and Zarath vessels floated together in death. Finally, the remaining Zarath ships did something unexpected. They ran. The surviving vessels turned and fled back toward the edge of Council space. Should we pursue? Vokhtar asked over the command channel. Kane thought about it. They could chase the Zarath, destroy every last ship, make sure they never threatened anyone again. But he thought about the human crews who had died today, the Council soldiers who wouldn't see their families again. The cost of victory, negative, Kane said. Let them go. If they come back, we'll be ready. But we don't pursue a beaten enemy. That's how wars become genocides. The Council forces held position, watching the Zarath disappear into the darkness. 2 weeks later, Kane stood in the Galactic Council chamber. The hall was packed with delegates from every species. Camera drones floated everywhere, broadcasting to billions across Council space. High Arbiter Thelxian addressed the assembly. Captain Kane, in recognition of your service to the Galactic Council, we present you with the Star of Unity, the highest honor we can bestow. You saved countless lives. You proved that different species can work together. You showed us all what courage and wisdom look like. Kane accepted the medal, a beautiful crystal that glowed with internal light. I didn't do this alone, High Arbiter. Every human crew member, every council soldier, they all fought together. This victory belongs to all of us. The chamber erupted in applause. Even the species that had been suspicious of humanity were cheering. Later, Kane met with Ambassador Vasquez in a quiet observation deck. They looked out at the stars together. They love you, Elena said. Humanity went from outcasts to heroes in 6 months. They don't love us, Kane corrected gently. They're grateful and relieved. There's a difference. Still better than being feared. Maybe. Kane watched a council cruiser pass by the window. But I wonder what comes next. We showed them we can protect them. What happens when they decide they don't need protection anymore? When they want to build ships like ours? Elena smiled. Then we help them. We share technology. We train their crews. We make everyone stronger. That's a nice dream. It's the only dream worth having. Elena looked at Kane seriously. We saved them, Marcus. We proved that humanity doesn't use power to dominate. We use it to protect. That's the lesson the galaxy needs to learn. Far below them on the station, Dr. Sarah Chen was already meeting with council scientists, sharing data about human weapons and defenses. General Volkov was setting up joint training programs with council militaries. Humanity had come out of the shadows. The monsters were no longer hidden, but instead of being feared, they were becoming partners, protectors, friends. In his quarters, Kane recorded a message to be sent back to Earth. Mission accomplished. The Council is safe. Humanity's secret is out. We lost 217 crew members in the battle. They died protecting species they'd never met. They died because it was right. He paused, thinking about those lost. Tell their families they were heroes. Tell Earth we're proud to be part of something bigger than ourselves. And tell the children that the monsters in the dark aren't always scary. Sometimes they're just looking out for you. Years later, when historians tried to define the moment everything changed, they pointed to the Battle of Frontier Gate. The day humanity stopped hiding. The day the galaxy learned that the newest species in council space was also the strongest. But they also learned something more important. They learned that humanity's greatest strength wasn't their ships or weapons. It was their choice to use those weapons only when necessary. To extend hands in friendship even when they could make fists. Humanity had built monsters to survive. But they had also learned to keep those monsters on a leash. And in doing so, they had become exactly what the galaxy needed, a species strong enough to protect everyone, wise enough not to conquer anyone, and brave enough to stand between the innocent and the dark. The galaxy would never see humanity as weak again. But more importantly, humanity had proven they would never use their strength carelessly. They were guardians, protectors, friends. And sometimes, when the universe needed it most, they were the monsters that saved everyone else from worse monsters. Captain Marcus Kane looked at the stars and smiled. The future was uncertain, but for the first time the galaxy would face it together,